I still remember that bright Saturday afternoon, how the sun poured into my living room, illuminating every corner and creating a cheerful atmosphere that should have been filled with laughter and joy. The golden rays danced across the hardwood floor, and the smell of freshly baked cookies wafted in from the kitchen, filling my senses with sweetness. My friends Angela, Sarah, and Espy were sprawled across the floor, engaged in a playful game of charades, their laughter bubbling up like a fountain of delight. The room was alive with their energy, the way they animatedly mimicked various scenes, their faces contorting into exaggerated expressions. I sat there, hugging my knees, just absorbing the moment, feeling a bubble of happiness rise within me, a contrast against the backdrop of my chaotic home. Come on, Sarah, I know you can guess this one, Angela cried, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Is it a dog? Sarah shot back, squinting her eyes in intense concentration. Nope, try again. Angela said through giggles, her arms waving wildly as if they could somehow guide Sarah's thoughts. I could almost feel the warmth of camaraderie wrapping around me like a soft blanket. In those moments, nothing else mattered. No worries about school or the social obligations of teen life. Just laughter, the kind that echoed off the walls and filled spaces that often felt empty. But like a nightmarish storm cloud sweeping in to ruin a perfect day, my mother burst through the front door with a force that sent chills down my spine, unwittingly dragging chaos in with her. Hello, everybody, guess who's back, she announced, her voice drowning out the giggles around me. Wearing her signature floral dress, a cacophony of colors and patterns that looked like it had been ripped from a circus tent, she resembled a mismatched performer commandeering the center stage of our home. Her hair was a frizzy halo, bouncing around as she twirled into the living room, completely unaware of how her arrival transformed the atmosphere. The joyous laughter that filled the room moments ago suddenly evaporated. My friends paused, their joy morphing into disbelief, their smiles fading like a setting sun. Hey, Mrs. Collins, a spy mumbled, attempting to muster a polite smile, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape route. I could feel the heat of embarrassment flooding my cheeks as I locked eyes with my friends. I wanted to disappear, shrink into the corner of the room, or find a remote that could fast forward through this moment. Instead, I sat frozen, a wave of anxiety washing over me as I fought against the urge to bury my head in my knees. What a lovely gathering. Were you all playing charades? Let me show you how it's done. With that, she plopped down right in the middle of my friends, a whirlwind of energy that sucked the air out of the room. I began, but the words stumbled out of my mouth, powerless against my mother's exuberance. Oh, hush, sweetie. I have the perfect one, she exclaimed, her bright eyes glinting with mischief. She took a deep breath, struck a dramatic pose, and began mimicking what I assumed to be a dolphin, flapping her arms and giggling. The laughter that erupted from her completely overshadowed my attempts at subtlety. I wanted to crawl under the sofa, away from the embarrassment, but Angela seemed to find amusement in my mother's antics, her laughter bursting forth in an unapologetic gale. Sarah and Espy exchanged glances, unsure what to make of the situation, their expressions like ships lost at sea, caught between politeness and the absurdity unfolding before them. Mooum. I said, trying to interject while cringing at how she had hijacked our game. Can we not do this right now? We were kind of in the middle of something else. Oh, come on, where's your sense of fun? She chuckled, now half immersed in her impromptu performance. How could she not see? This was not fun. This was a disaster unfolding right in front of me. My friends had started avoiding our house over the smallest things, and I knew my mother's spontaneous outbursts only added to their reluctance. I started to isolate myself from the friends I once adored, agonizing over the situation, replaying every moment, burdened by the weight of her actions. You could at least laugh a little, sweetheart. This is what life is about, she said, tilting her head as though trying to coax a smile out of me. Life isn't just about showing off in front of everyone. I shot back, my voice rising higher than intended, tinged with frustration. Can you just be normal for once? At that moment, the world around me stilled. My mother stopped mid-charade, her mouth hanging open as if I had slapped her. The vibrant colors of her dress seemed to dull, the light in her eyes flickering just a bit as the realization washed over her. I could feel the tension gnawing at the air, heavy and suffocating. Normal, is that what you want from me? I'm just trying to have some fun with you all. She replied, her tone softening, yet laced with disbelief, as though she had never contemplated the idea that her behavior could be anything but delightful. It's not fun for me, Mom, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, the hurt spilling quietly into our conversation. You don't even think about how your actions affect us. The laughter that had once filled the room faded into an awkward silence, where time stretched with anticipation, each beat echoing against the walls. I could almost hear the whispers behind my back, speculating about my mother. I envisioned the kind of legacy she was creating, one that I'd be forced to carry into my own adulthood. Each tick of the clock was a reminder of my turmoil, and it felt as if I was living in an exaggerated sitcom, one where I played the dutiful daughter, desperately trying to keep my head above water while plotting my revenge against her erratic behavior. As I glanced at my friends, their expressions varied from sympathy to mild amusement, but something deeper, a shared understanding perhaps, flashed in their eyes, and I realized that they had seen enough of my mother's chaos to understand part of my struggle. I felt trapped, suffocated by her immaturity, and I had to reclaim my life, my sanity. Mom, this is not the time or place, I said more firmly, the resolve building within me like molten lava. We want to enjoy our time together. Not have it turned into whatever this is. I just thought I could lighten the mood, she said, her shoulders dropping a little, and for a moment she looked so much smaller, as if my words had deflated some of her vibrant spirit. Maybe if you considered our feelings sometimes, you would find you don't have to perform for us all the time, I suggested, my heart racing, another layer peeling away from my own complicated feelings toward her. I moved past anger and hurt and tapped into something more precarious, hope that maybe she could understand, even if just a smidgen, that the chaos she brought into our lives needed to quiet down. She hesitated, her expression shifting from defensive to contemplative. I didn't mean to upset you. I just want us to have fun as a family. I thought I could be a little silly to lighten things up. Mom, you need to respect my space and my feelings. This is not the way to connect with us, I replied, the firmness in my voice adding weight to my words. I took a deep breath, feeling the tension in my muscles, contemplating every choice I made that day. I had begun to envision a plan, a way to confront her not just for myself, but for the sake of my family, to openly address the chaos she thrived in, the turmoil she insisted was just being fun. The determination coursed through me like an electric current, empowering every fiber of my being. I'm tired of this, I need you to understand, and I need to reclaim my life from all of this. She blinked, processing the words stitched right into my heart. The soft simmer of her flamboyant exuberance started transforming into a deeper understanding. I'm sorry if I have been too much, she eventually said, her voice small, almost shaky. It was as if she was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, struggling to find her place in my and my friend's judgment. Let's just try to have a good day together, Mom. No performances. I smiled weakly, a small truce forming amidst the rubble of chaos. As my friends silently watched, I felt a little weight lift off my shoulders, but deep down I knew this wouldn't be the end. I still had a long way to go before reclaiming my own life from her loud, chaotic storm. Steeling myself with determination, I began to jot down every detail in my mind, mapping out my intentions, feeling the tingling wave of anticipation as I imagined how the confrontation would unfold. It felt like sharpening a knife, preparing to cut through the red tape of our dysfunctional lives. That day marked the beginning of my journey, a journey not just to correct a chaotic narrative, but to confront and redefine who I was in this tangled mess. I would plot my revenge, not necessarily out of spite, but to reclaim my dignity, my sanity, and perhaps, if she was willing, find a way to reconnect with the mother I lost in the whirlwind of her storms. How foolish. I was to think my plan was a surefire way to disrupt her behavior. I began enacting my grand scheme, filled with an eagerness to deliver a wake-up call to my mother, but I quickly realized that handling her was far more complicated than I had anticipated. I invited her closest companions for a gathering, hoping that they could finally bring some accountability to her life. What should have been a casual dinner turned into a chaotic clash of emotions, the tension palpable even before the doorbell rang. As I stood there, just moments from the first knock on the door, I could feel a knot tightening in my stomach, dread crawling its way up my spine like a phantom chill. I had orchestrated this gathering, each detail perfectly executed within the confines of my mind, yet the reality of the situation felt monumentally daunting as anxiety clawed at me. When the guests arrived, their laughter echoed down the hallway, a sweet sound that dripped with irony, a stark contrast to the electric tension that crackled in the air. I forced a smile through the tightness in my throat and opened the door, enveloping them in my arms as if I were a heavenly host welcoming souls into paradise. Each familiar face was a silent reminder of the layers of complications woven between us, a tapestry of shared confusion and discomfort, all tied to my mother. As they milled around, sharing stories and concocting lighthearted banter, I tossed around appetizers, holding on to the fleeting moments of normalcy. The bright hues of the veggies dancing with the savory sense of cheese made me feel like I was floating on some cloud of culinary distraction. Each time I glanced at my mother, laughing loudly across the room with one of her friends, a wave of anger and determination struck me anew. Obliviously, she chatted, punctuating her words with exaggerated hand gestures, her laughter rolling through the air, yet I was vigilant. I needed to set her straight. I was an actress behind the curtain, and it was nearly my time to step into the spotlight. The moment felt surreal as the atmosphere thickened with unspoken expectations. When I finally decided to set my plan into action, I built a scene with Steve, my husband, who was blissfully unaware of his role in this fabricated drama. We stood near the break between the living room and the kitchen where I banged dishes together, expertly crafting a backdrop ripe with tension and anticipation. Can you just listen to yourself for 1 second? I snapped, letting my voice lift in an exaggerated inflection. You never listen to me. You never appreciate me. How could you? My shout pierced through the laughter and chatter, a singular dark cloud passing over a sunny day. The room quieted as heads turned in my direction, eyes wide like startled deer. In that tense silence, my heart raced against my ribcage, a frantic drumbeat echoing in my ears while a sickening twist of anxiety knotted my stomach. I dared to cast furtive glances toward my mother, who had paused, surprise frosting her features. "Marissa, I think this is," Steve began, concern shadowing his eyes as he began to move toward me. But I pressed on, letting the dramatic pitch of my voice carry my bold declarations. "How could you say you care about me, yet ignore all my needs? You display your disdain for our marriage in every interaction you have with me." I built the lie, blending fabricated truths with real frustrations. The discomfort in the room morphed as I watched my mother's friends flinch. Their faces turned from curiosity to flushed embarrassment, and horror unfolded like curtains on a stark, brutal stage. I wanted them to realize the chaos my mother created in our lives was not an innocent quirk, but a series of calculated antics that distanced others, even their own families, from her. Each word I crafted sank into the air, lurking beneath the surface like a shadow, waiting for someone to notice. I could feel their eyes on me, a mixture of confusion and concern swirling among the guests. Their initial amusement morphed into a quiet unease, uncertainty tiptoeing just below the surface. The heating tension was intoxicating, electric, and it surged through my veins, fueling my determination. As I finished my tragic performance, masking my anger behind fabricated tears, I turned to face my mother, who stood frozen across the room, tears brimming in her eyes. She was a photograph caught in time, a blend of disbelief and hurt etched onto her features. I could almost see the thoughts racing through her mind, flickering like lightning in a storm. What have I done to prompt this? I had painted this vivid picture, an explosion of emotion that exposed her madness, and in that electric moment, I witnessed a flicker of understanding dawn on her face. Could it be that she finally grasped the depth of the emotions that rippled, persistent and profound, through the fabric of our family? I approached her slowly, the air thick with frustration, a palpable tension hanging like a dense fog. My heart echoed the steps as I closed the distance between us, every sound amplified in the silence. I had rehearsed this part, the second act of my carefully plotted revenge. "You cannot stunt my growth anymore," I urged, my voice a steady whisper, though inside nerves began to rupture. "This behavior has affected me and our family. It is time for you to grow up." The critical moment loomed like a thunderous drum, pounding in my chest with uncertainty, trepidation. I could feel the heat radiating from her body, casting about the invisible energy of desperation. What would she do? Would she lash out like a cornered animal, defensive and angry? Or would she finally absorb the weight of her actions, gazing into the reflection of her life and realizing the devastation it scattered? The tension coiled tighter, punctuated by the soft murmur of my mother's friends, which echoed calls of concern. "Marissa, please," one of them finally interjected gently, her frail voice a mere whisper against the storm brewing within me. "Maybe we should talk about this later." That only fanned the flames of courage inside me. I shook my head slowly, refusing to yield to the notion of postponement. "No, it cannot wait," I insisted, a surge of bravery rushing through my veins like wildfire. "This has been building for years." My mother stood unmoving, silent tears cascading down her cheeks like the summer rain that dances down pavements. With each sob that escaped her, I sensed the crack in my resolve, the fear of what I had unleashed creeping in. It mirrored my own. She rubbed at her eyes, her delicate fingers trembling against the vulnerability dripping from her. "I did not mean to hurt you. I just wanted to be a good mother," she murmured, her voice echoing a broken kind of sincerity, barely audible against the weight of her sobs. "But you did hurt me, hurt us," I pressed on gently, a soft reminder of the chaos that her antics often created. I could see the weight of realization breaking against her, the layers of years unveiling before us. "It is time for you to face what you have done, to look inward instead of outward. You cannot make us, the ones who love you, responsible for your unhappiness." The culmination of these words hung heavy in the air, winding their way toward my mother. I craved to see the change in her, the rebirth from the ashes of her denial. But instead of anger, she crumpled. The melodious sobs echoed through the walls of our home, each syllable manifesting the weight of hurt she had long kept bottled up inside like a blizzard waiting to burst. They were not just tears of sorrow, but of recognition and remorse, flowing for lost time, for emotions unexpressed, for a daughter crying out to her mother. And in that moment where everything shifted, the chaos I had devised now took on unexpected dimensions of vulnerability, of all the cracks in our relationship laid bare for dissection. I felt vulnerable now, standing exposed beneath the flickering lights. Would this moment be the catalyst for change, for growth, or would it slide back into the darkness? It was a gamble I had taken, and now, as the echoes of her cries reverberated around us, I held my breath for the outcome as my words hung in the air. The tension was almost unbearable. I felt a shiver ripple down my spine, uncertain whether I had struck a nerve or merely escalated her defenses. Her tears were genuine, brimming with the confusion and regret that had been absent from her usually vibrant demeanor. I had crossed a line, but I was uncertain whether I had crossed it for better or worse. That single moment felt magical as I saw the gears in her mind begin to turn, struggling to process her reckless actions amidst the deep emotional chasm she had created in our relationship. I inhaled deeply, preparing for her rebuttal, for I was certain she would defend her actions, deflect blame, or lash out in the heat of vulnerability. But instead, she surprised me. Marissa, I did not realize. I thought I was just being myself, creating a fun atmosphere, she faltered, her voice barely breaking through the emotions she fought to express. There was a fragile quality to her tone that struck me in a way I had never experienced before. I had witnessed her bluster through so many confrontations, armed with sarcasm or flippant excuses, but this felt different. This was the admission of a woman stripped of the colorful masks she wore, the glittering matriarch whose laughter filled rooms with noise while simultaneously drowning out her own pain. I had never seen my mother so stripped of her bravado, so raw and exposed before me. Her cheeks glistened with unshed tears as she stood amid her friends, who shifted uncomfortably, their eyes wide with concern. I noticed how the vibrant makeup that usually adorned her face now appeared uneven, the colors running as if they were all too aware of the emotional storm brewing beneath the surface. She took a shaky breath, glancing around at her friends whose faces mirrored growing concern and poignant understanding. In that precious moment, the shift from chaotic matriarch to vulnerable human stilled my heart. The vulnerability she displayed felt like an invitation for connection, a bridge across the tumultuous river that had separated us for so long. The room was thick with silence, pregnant with unsaid words and unacknowledged feelings. I could hear the faint shuffling of feet among her friends, the rhythmic tapping of their anxious fingers against the table, the lingering echoes of laughter now fading into the background as the reality of our conversation took center stage. It was a dramatic scene, one worthy of the best soap operas, yet here I stood, surrounded by the aftermath of our emotional release. I gently reached for her hand, my own trembling slightly as I carefully bridged the gap between us, between mother and daughter, between chaos and clarity. I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin, an instinctual comfort that stirred something deep within me. It is okay to have fun, but there have to be boundaries, Mom. We can love each other while still respecting each person's space, I whispered, my voice calm, relieved to finally unearth the healing words beneath my frustration. The air around us felt electrified, each word vibrating with the potential for change. It was almost surreal, the way the light fell on us, illuminating the depths of our interwoven histories, the memories that clung like cobwebs in corners of our hearts. A heavy silence enveloped the room, thick like molasses, and I could see the wheels in her mind turning as she absorbed my words. I marveled at her capacity for transformation, the dawning realization breaking across her face. Perhaps my mother had needed me to articulate what had been left unsaid for far too long, a plea for emotional sanity dressed as an ultimatum. The path to redemption was layered, but she appeared willing to take that first step without brushing off her faults. Her laughter, so often loud and boisterous, faded into a gentle sob, the kind that seemed to rise from the depths of her being as if she were purging all the years of chaos, laughter, and masked pain. I felt my heart lifting, the years of burden unraveling along with the ties that bound us in chaos. What if this was the moment that rewrote our story? What if we were finally on the precipice of understanding? Marissa, I honestly thought everyone enjoyed my antics, she admitted softly, her voice quaking as she mopped at her cheeks with the sleeve of her blouse, leaving streaks of mascara in its wake. I wanted to be fun, to make life exciting. I know, Mom, I have loved that part of you, but it feels like sometimes you forget who else is in that fun, your family. We need you too, not just the wild side. As the words rolled off my tongue, I could feel the warmth of her hand around mine, a silent acknowledgement that we were in this together, navigating this new terrain. She inhaled shakily, the scent of her perfume mingling with the familiar warmth of her presence. I thought if I kept things lively, you all would be happy. I'm just scared of being boring, of being seen as just ordinary. My heart twisted in understanding. There was a child buried inside her, a child who perhaps feared the same solitude I often felt. I wanted to reach deeper, to unravel the layers that held her captive in this cycle of reckless joy, seeking validation from those around her while neglecting the quiet moments that truly mattered. You don't have to be anything but yourself to be enough for us, I said, trying to convey the depth of my sincerity. Your reckless fun can be wonderful, but your calm and steady presence is just as essential. That's the woman I want to connect with, the one who feels safe being, well, you. As I spoke, I noticed her friends moving closer, forming a spontaneous circle, providing both support and a safe olive branch extending around us. They nodded gently, wearing expressions of solidarity, encouraging a moment that refused to break under the weight of our shared histories. Their tight grip on one another was a grounding force amidst the storm raging between mother and daughter. Her eyes met mine across that room, thick with emotion, and an understanding bloomed there, a quiet agreement that we could forge something stronger. You're right, I think I've lost sight of what it means to just be with the people I love, she said softly, her voice thick with sincerity. The atmosphere shifted in the space. the weight of chaos fading, giving way to a new normal we could construct together, one built on the foundation of compassion rather than noise and distraction. I felt a surge of hope as I caught her gaze shift towards mine, an understanding blossoming that she had entered a new season of self-reflection. "I will change, Marissa," she pledged softly, the tone in her voice suffused with a newfound sincerity that wrapped around us like a warm blanket on a cold evening. "I truly want to be better for you and for all of us." Her fingers tightened around mine, and in that brief movement, I felt the heaviness of all the unsaid words lift just a fraction. With a gentle pat on my back and a weight lifted off our shoulders, I concluded that while our family dynamic would always remain a tapestry of flaws and quirks, this moment was unlike any other. It felt like standing on the threshold of a new era, our laughter and struggles woven together, yet more deliberate. The vibrant colors of our lives could still run wild between us, but they could also find structure, a balance. As we shared that sacred silence, the room around began to pulse again, the energy of our friends blending softly with the moment. Bursting into conversation, one of her friends chimed in with a gentle nod. "We love you just as you are, but we also want you to feel the love coming back to you. Just create a little more space for it." The corner of my mouth lifted as I glanced at my mother, who was watching her friends with a growing realization. Her lips twitched into a tentative smile, and in that fleeting instant, it felt as if we had begun to navigate through the pain of the past to uncover the richness that lay ahead. Perhaps this conversation, raw as it had been, had cracked open a door that for so long had remained locked. I could almost hear the faint echoes of healing beginning to spark, and that was enough days turned into weeks, and I found myself awakening to a world that felt lighter somehow, a layer of fog lifted from my heart and mind. Each new sunrise greeted me with an optimism that was practically tangible. I could hardly believe that my mother had taken the first steps toward change. After so many years of chaos and boundary issues, it was surreal to witness her reaching out for help, eager to learn about respect. I never thought I would see her this way, attempting to change, to understand, and to listen. "Can you believe this?" I said to myself one morning, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My voice was soft, almost in disbelief. The woman looking back was no longer simply someone defined by her mother's antics and behaviors. She was a woman reclaiming her space, her identity, and redefining her relationship with her own family. As I prepared my morning coffee, the rich aroma filled the room, grounding me in the moment. I could hear my mother's laughter echoing from the living room, a sound that used to churn something in my stomach but now warmed my chest. She was recounting one of her colorful anecdotes to my children, her eyes sparkling with mischief and joy. For once, I didn't feel the need to intervene to shield them from her untamed stories. Rather, I felt a connection, a budding friendship that had always been clouded by the tumult of our past. I ventured into the living room where my mother was animatedly describing a childhood incident. And then I thought it was a cat, but it turned out to be a porcupine. Oh, the look on my mother's face. She paused, catching sight of me. "Oh, honey, did I tell you about the porcupine episode yet?" "Yeah," I replied, unable to suppress a smile. It felt different. "This is the second time this week, but it's still hilarious." "See," she beamed, clearly enjoying the humor, but then her expression softened. "I mean, I get carried away sometimes, don't I?" "No," I said gently, "not carried away, it's just you." I know," she sighed, her posture shifting from exuberance to one of genuine reflection. "It's time I learned that not everything has to be a big production. Sometimes a good story needs just a little bit of finesse, right?" The sincerity in her voice struck me. It was as if a new layer of her was unfolding, one I had not truly appreciated amidst her chaotic personality before. It sparked something inside me, the desire to understand her as more than just my mother, but as a person who was growing and evolving. "You're doing really well," I encouraged her softly. "Do you really think so? You have no idea how many books I've read about boundaries," she replied, the enthusiasm creeping back in her voice as she leaned forward. "I learned that it is okay to be myself, but only when I respect the space of others." "Absolutely, Mom." "It's a balance," I said, and we both chuckled at the theme that was weaving itself into our conversations. We continued to discuss the intricacies of respect, both in friendships and family, and with every exchange I discovered more of who she was beneath layers of chaos and humor. It was a process, peeling back the self-defensive layers I did not even know existed. One particular afternoon, while sitting on the porch in the midst of summer's warm embrace, we dove deeper into these topics. The breeze carried the soft rustle of trees and the faint laughter of children playing nearby. My mother had brought out a small notebook, filled with her thoughts and reflections from her recent readings. "I wrote something I thought you might like," she said, flipping the pages until she found the right one. "It says here, boundaries are like fences. They protect your space, but also give you a clearer view of the world outside." "Isn't that a beautiful thought?" "I like that," I replied, glancing at the notes surrounding the quote, some scribbled furiously, some written neatly in colorful pens. "You really are taking this seriously. Of course, I don't want to go back to how things were." Her face was earnest, and I could see she meant every word. "I spent too many years being reckless without thinking about how it affected my relationships, especially mine with you." For a moment, her smile faded. I can't undo my mistakes, but I can learn from them. I swallowed hard, emotions swirling within me. All those years spent in the shadows of her decisions, the hurt, the confusion, it felt heavy, yet here we were enacting something new, something powerful. I appreciate that. It's never too late to change, I suppose, I said, forcing a smile through the bittersweet storm inside me. My children appeared then, running toward us with arms wide open, their voices erupting in laughter that enveloped the moment. "What are you two talking about?" one asked, plopping down on the porch steps. "Oh, just how to be graceful while stepping out of your comfort zones," my mother replied with a wink. "Can I do that?" the other one asked, tilting ahead. "Like become a lion tamer or something?" "Sure," my mother declared, "as long as you remember your boundaries and respect the lions." They erupted into giggles, clearly enjoying the absurdity. My heart swelled, and in that moment I felt like a bridge had formed, offering a new way for all of us to interact. My children were witnessing growth, not just in me but in their grandmother as well, and I hoped it would shape their little hearts positively. Weeks sped by like the changing seasons, and slowly I could feel the tendrils of resentment I had clutched for so long loosening their grip on me. I reconnected with my friends, shared laughter and stories without the heavy burdens of shame or sorrow. We filled our gatherings with warmth and energy, the kind I had suppressed behind closed doors for too long. During one such meeting, as a group of us shared a meal, I found myself reflecting quietly. "I'm really happy," I said finally, finding just the right moment to share my truth. I lifted my glass, my friend's eyes turning toward me. "It's not just the food or the laughter, it feels like I'm reclaiming a part of my life." The table erupted with cheers, laughter pouring forth like a summer rain. "Here's to reclaiming everything," a friend toasted, and we clinked glasses. It was a refreshing moment, a collective sense of liberation. Later, as my friends aided in cleaning up, I caught myself stealing glances outside where my mother played with my children. They were in the backyard, laughter mingling with the rustle of the wind. I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. My mother's transitions had given me the chance to reflect on who I wanted to be and how I wanted to raise my kids, freely and without fear of stepping on boundaries that should not have been crossed. And then came the day that felt as if a door was breaking wide open. It was an ordinary afternoon when my mother broached a subject that had been swirling in the air for some time. She looked at me with such intensity, a hint of apprehension marring her features. "How about we attend that workshop together?" I furrowed my brow, pausing to process her words. "A workshop, like one for boundaries or—" "Exactly," she confirmed excitedly, her hands animated once more. "We can learn together how to create love balanced with respect. It feels like a perfect step forward, you know." For a moment, silence stretched between us, filled only with the sounds of a gentle breeze. I could almost hear the heartbeats of our shared history echoing through that silence. "Wow," I said finally, "that sounds like an amazing idea. I want us to navigate life together as partners," she continued, earnest and glowing. "Not just as mother and daughter, but as two people willing to grow and learn." The revelation stunned me. I never thought we would reach this point. It was as if the irony of my original revenge plan, this desire to distance myself and cut ties, had transformed into something beautiful, akin to a phoenix rising from its ashes. "I always thought that change wasn't possible," I admitted. She chuckled softly, brushing her hair back with a hand. "Well, it is, with patience and a whole lot of understanding. We've been through the fire together, after all." Yes, through the fire. That phrase resonated deeply within me. The chaos and the pain had forged something resilient, a bond that could weather future storms. I dared to dream that our legacy, once marred by immaturity, could become one of healing and growth. "Let's do it then," I said with newfound determination, my eyes sparkling as brightly as the summer sun. This could be the start of something incredible for both of us. And so, with each passing day, I became more and more convinced that my mother was finally learning to channel her energy into love, a sustaining force that would not only hold us together but also guide us forward, entwined like the roots of a flourishing tree.